Tom knew he needed more than savings, he needed leverage. He found a retired banker named Alan who often chatted with the office workers over coffee. Tom listened, observed, waited, then one day, he approached him. "Mr. Alan," he said quietly, "if someone had a great opportunity, but no money, where would they start?" Alan smirked. "They'd find someone who does have money, and show them why it's worth the risk." That night, Tom wrote a one-page pitch, not on a laptop, on notebook paper, with a pencil. It explained why the building was underperforming, and how it could become profitable again. He knew every flaw, every leak, every overdue repair, and how cheap it would be to fix. 2 days later, he handed it to Alan, who chuckled, then raised an eyebrow. "You wrote this?" Tom nodded. Alan said, "Come with me." They met with a silent investor Alan knew. Someone looking for a low-risk, high-potential buy. Tom asked for $200,000, just enough to cover a down payment and legal fees. In exchange, the investor would get a minority stake, while Tom handled the day-to-day. It was risky, but the investor said yes. Within 3 months, Tom, the janitor, was part owner of the building, and nobody working inside had the slightest clue. Tom didn't quit his janitor job. Why? Because he knew the building better than anyone, and because nobody suspects the janitor, he walked the halls like always. But now, he was taking notes, not just cleaning. He started small. Repaired broken HVACs using budget techs. Replaced old fluorescent lights with efficient LEDs. Renegotiated the vending machine contracts. Increased rent on a few suites that were way below market value. Within a year, the building turned cash flow positive. The investor was thrilled. Alan called him the quiet assassin. Tom just kept mopping. He didn't buy a new car. Didn't change his clothes. Didn't tell a soul. The tenants thought the building had been sold to some group. They never imagined the guy vacuuming their hallway owned their office. But Tom wasn't done. He didn't want a building. He wanted an empire. So he went back to the same investor and pitched again. By 2003, Tom had equity in one building and plans for more. He studied city maps, looked for struggling properties near growing neighborhoods. He found an old dental plaza for sale. It was 70% vacant, riddled with code violations. Most people ran. Tom leaned in. He pitched the same investor and brought in 2 more. This time, he took 15% equity and managed the renovation himself. He hired reliable contractors, many of whom were old friends, paid them fairly. Got the work done ahead of schedule. Then he started offering flexible leases to small business owners, photographers, therapists, startups. In 18 months, the plaza was full, the property value tripled. Tom's 15% was now worth more than $600,000, but he still wore his janitor uniform, still showed up at 4:45 a.m., not because he had to, but because he liked being invisible. By 2007, he owned pieces of 5 properties. His net worth crossed $1.20 million. Not a single tenant had any idea. Tom became known, behind the scenes, as the ghost investor. He never appeared in meetings, never showed up on websites. All contracts listed his holding company Clean Slate LLC. He created it as a joke, but it started to mean something more. Meetings, never showed up. Websites, contracts. Holding company, Clean Slate LLC, joke, means something more. Tom had rebuilt his life from zero, literally cleaning up messes, into quiet power, and then, the market crashed. 2008. Properties were going under. Tenants were fleeing, values tanked, but Tom didn't panic. Why? Because he never over-leveraged. No flashy loans. No debt-fueled gambles, just boring, slow growth. While others were losing everything, Tom bought 2 more buildings for pennies on the dollar. The janitor was now worth millions, but still, every morning, there he was, same bucket, same mop, same smile, because in a world obsessed with showing off, Tom believed in one thing. Wealth whispers. It was bound to happen. A new tenant moved in, an ambitious young lawyer named Rachel, sharp, curious, always asked questions. One night, she forgot her laptop and returned to the office at 11 p.m. She saw Tom walking out of the property manager's office, key in hand. Laptop open. Documents on the screen. He smiled. Forgot something, he asked. Rachel blinked. Wait, why are you in there? Tom just nodded and walked away. The next morning, she asked the front desk, who owns this building? Receptionist shrugged. Some investment firm. Clean slate or something. Rachel Googled it. Found the name T. Grayson on a deed. Her jaw dropped. She put it together. Tom, the janitor, was T. Grayson. She didn't tell anyone. Not yet. But she watched him differently from that day on. Then, one Friday, someone casually joked in the break room. Man, Tom knows this place better than the landlord. Rachel smiled. You have no idea. Word started spreading. Quietly, a rumor the janitor owns the building. Some laughed, some shrugged, some investigated. It didn't take long before a real estate developer showed up, offering to buy all 6 of Tom's buildings in one deal. Price tag $27.40 million. Tom read the offer once. Folded the paper, said, I'll think about it. He didn't say yes. Didn't say no. He walked back to his supply closet, sat in the same old chair, sipped stale coffee. Looked out the window. This building had been his home. His escape. His comeback, but maybe now, it was time. The next week, he met with Rachel and handed her an envelope. Inside, he said, is your first real estate stake. You're sharp. Thoughtful. You saw what no one else did. It was a check. Enough for a down payment on her first commercial unit. Rachel stared, speechless. Tom smiled. Don't waste it, he said. Start your clean slate. Tom sold the buildings, took the deal, but not for the money. He used the payout to fund a quiet foundation, offering mentorship, seed funding, and basic financial education to blue-collar workers. No press release. No social media. Just handwritten letters and envelopes delivered in person. The world finally started to notice. The Janitor Millionaire became a legend. Podcasts. News stories. Think pieces, but by the time people tried to interview him, he was gone. No LinkedIn. No photos. No address, just stories. Some say he moved to a cabin in Oregon. Press release, social media, handwritten letters. The Janitor Millionaire, legend, podcasts, news stories. He was gone, no LinkedIn, no address, stories. Others claim he still visits his old buildings, just to mop one last floor, but Rachel, she still owns that first unit. And 10 more since, all under her own company Ghost Holdings. A quiet tribute to the man who taught her everything without saying a word, and in her office hangs a single quote. Some clean to survive, others clean to build. T.G. Every morning at 4:45 a.m., Thomas arrived at the office building in a worn-out blue hoodie and steel-toed boots. He never spoke much. Just nodded politely and pushed his squeaky mop bucket down the hall. To the employees, he was just Tom the janitor. Nice guy. Quiet. Always around, but never seen. They didn't know he'd been there for over 20 years. They didn't know he never missed a single day, rain or snow, sick or tired. And they definitely didn't know that Tom owned the entire building they worked in. Yep. The janitor was the landlord, and nobody had a clue. The IT started in the early 90s. Tom had just been laid off from a warehouse job. Divorced. Broke. And pushing 40. He took the janitor gig because it paid weekly, in cash, and included a tiny storage room he could sleep in until he got back on his feet, but something happened during those late-night shifts. While others saw dirty carpets and clogged toilets, Tom saw opportunity. He started listening to how the business people in the building talked. He read every discarded newspaper. Took old office books from the trash. Taught himself about stocks, finance, and real estate, in between scrubbing toilets, and then, in 1998, everything changed. He overheard 2 execs discussing how the owner of the building was struggling with debt. There were rumors the building would be sold off, cheap. Tom stayed quiet. But that night, he pulled out a notebook he'd been filling for 5 years, every dollar he'd saved. Every tip he'd gotten, every cent he didn't spend, he had $11 for 92. Not enough to buy anything yet, but he had a plan, and he wasn't going to mop floors forever.